Hi everyone. Welcome to All Things Royal. Before anything else, I would like to thank everyone for watching my videos and those who have subscribed. I really appreciate it. Anyway, let me continue with more accounts from the book of Wendy Berry, The Housekeeper's Diary, Charles and Diana before the breakup. In Chapter 4, Prince Andrew and his then-fiancée Sarah Ferguson would come by to visit Highgrove. Berry talks about helping unpack Sarah's suitcase, which was a bit battered and old. She put Sarah in the green room and Diana's dresser Evelyn was also there to help unpack Sarah's clothes. Berry and Evelyn were a bit surprised to see Sarah's grey-white underwear. I think this was more a result of the white underwear washed with maybe blacks which then changed the colour of the underwear. Anyway, it was something they were not used to seeing and did not expect to see in someone engaged to a royal. Anyway, Harry and William very much enjoyed their visit from their Uncle Andrew. They played lots of games and practical jokes on one another. Berry mentioned that she did not like Prince Andrew mostly because he was one to expect to be waited on hand and foot. But she admits that she does not blame Andrew for that as it was the only thing in life he knew. Berry remembered that time, that weekend as one of laughter and mirth for Diana and her boys. Berry acknowledged that this atmosphere only seemed possible now when only one of the parents was there, when either Diana was with the boys or Charles was with the boys. If it was Diana, Charles, and the boys, there were sometimes bound to be disagreements and fights between Diana and Charles. Anyway, Charles and Diana would go away on a skiing holiday and the boys were left in the care of their nanny Barbara Barnes. Barnes was very much calm and in control of her work. She kept the boys to a routine and this helped keep the boys calm. At night, they would have their bath, get into their jammies and get into bed. They would then wait for a call from their parents and that was exciting for them. Diana would ask to speak to Barbara about what transpired during the day. And then the boys would go to sleep. The following day, the same thing would transpire again like clockwork. Barbara was strict with the boys in a way which helped ensure that they were able to get things they needed done during the day without any incident. Diana and Barbara had their conflicts about how the boys were being raised. Diana felt that William had to have a normal upbringing and Barbara felt that if William was raised that way, that would bring up all sorts of problems in the future when he would be confronted with the realities of his life as a royal. Wendy also talked about how Charles was discussing some changes he wanted made to the interior decorating. While discussing, Wendy noticed how happy Charles seemed to be. She likened Charles to someone who was in love. When Wendy mentioned this to one of Charles's security, the security remarked, "But with whom?" Anyway, Wendy ended Chapter 4 with that cliffhanger. Allow me to continue to Chapter 5. In this chapter, Wendy discusses how Charles and Diana's marriage was getting worse at this point. When the Wales would arrive in Highgrove, they usually did in separate cars. They would put on a good front for the boys' sake. But it was obvious the marital problems between they two were getting worse. Diana was sometimes often in tears. There were really bad arguments. The children were usually bewildered by the commotion and when Diana would walk out of a room after arguing with Charles, she was often in tears. Diana was so upset sometimes she could barely say goodbye to the staff. Charles would usually come out and would apologize to Diana for making her cry. He would kiss her on the cheek goodbye and tried to make sure she was all right before she got into the car. But sometimes, she would still be crying as she would go to the car. Sometimes, she would also put Harry on her lap while crying and upset. So you can just imagine how this could have affected Harry. Anyway, during one incident where Diana was sobbing as she was being driven away from Highgrove, one older staff member remarked this way, "As soon as Charles got rid of that one, the better." Everyone heard that remark, but nobody chose to reply. Everyone just went quiet. I think this would speak to the fact that with all they have seen in Highgrove, it was a sentiment they all likely echoed. Anyway, that was that. Wendy did say that they were loyal staff to their bosses and they did their best to ensure such loyalty at all times. There were however moments which eroded such trust. William, Wendy mentioned, had his first royal engagement during his grandmother's 60th birthday. William was supposed to attend the service and ride in the carriage with the Queen back to the palace. He was about to turn 4 years old at that time. William was very excited about this and was taking it as seriously as a 4-year-old can. He kept asking over and over again who was going to be there and what he was expected to do, and his nanny Barbara did her best to enlighten him. Barbara really got William ready for his first royal engagement. This was before Charles and Diana had an official trip to Canada and Japan. At this point, Wendy pointed out that Charles and Diana were not even talking to one another. Charles was quiet and very formal and would retreat inside himself, while Diana got very aggressive, with her eyes blazing and stomping around the place. She usually sulked for days while Charles did his own sulking, but in a way which was less visible to the staff. So we can see here two very different people really. Wendy narrates also that Diana seemed to be happier in the summer months because she could swim in the morning at Highgrove's pool. She swam usually in the mornings and late afternoons. Charles would also swim, but more for recreation. They both encouraged the boys to swim as well, but while Diana liked to swim laps, the boys and Charles used the pool more for horseplay and some fun. Charles also liked to go to Balmoral while Diana did not. She was a city girl at heart, so she found Balmoral very isolating. When she could not avoid going to Balmoral, the staff would bound to hear tears and tantrums and fights between Charles and Diana. And in the end, Diana would sometimes take out her frustrations on her dresser, Evelyn. Wendy tells how Diana would sometimes call her dresser and berate her for an hour, telling her such harsh and horrible things. In the end, Evelyn would then go to Wendy and tell her what Diana told her. Wendy also talks about the time when the housekeeper who had cancer died. Her name was Nesta and she was married to Patty, who was also part of the staff at Highgrove. Wendy recalls how sweet and supportive Diana was to Patty during that time. Now Patty did not like Diana and Diana knew about Patty's dislike of her. But this did not stop Diana from being supportive and sweet towards Patty. Wendy says that Diana a conflicting personality because at times, she could be so horrible to the staff, but then on a complete turnaround be so sweet and kind and good to them, as she was to Patty when Nesta died. Wendy thought about how Diana could be so sweet and caring also to the general public but could be spiteful and woundingly sarcastic in private to her staff. Wendy said this irritated her at times. Anyway, so in this chapter we get a bit of glimpse how the marriage of Charles and Diana was slowly deteriorating, and how this was affecting the people around them, especially William and Harry. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, don't forget to like my videos and subscribe to my channel. In the next video, I'll discuss the next chapter of Wendy's book. The title of the next chapter is Camilla. But for now, bye.